Hey guys, this is Norman over with SoundTraxx here, and welcome to this very special third episode of our Train Talk from Milepost 141 podcast, also known as Soundbites. So, just to start us off here, before we get to our very special guest today, what have you been up to this past week?
6 foot and no good. Actually, I've been doing a lot. I've been actually spending a lot more time working on my railroad, and so I don't have any models here to show you in this particular day.
Yeah.
But I have also been working on some models that just weren't finished in time for this particular episode. But the good news is that I've been making a lot of progress on the layout, and if anybody is interested in taking a look at what my layout looks like, you can actually see layout updates and operation videos on my layout. If you go to youtube.com and search Goalie George, that's GoalieGeorge as one word, you'll be able to see what's going on my layout, some videos that I've posted. I've actually got some other things, including some of my hockey games that I've posted up on the videos as well, both from a helmet cam, a glass cam behind me, and then also one that's kind of off to the side videotaping as the play goes on. Those are some older ones though, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to record.
I believe it.
And especially as the goalie, because I'm there, and then when the period ends, we only have literally 1 minute to get our bearings, rest for a second, catch a breath, and then get over to the other side before they're ready to drop the puck. So when it happens, first off, if you guys didn't know, I'm a hockey goalie. I also do that on my free time. So not only do I get to play with trains, I also play with hockey. I figured might as well live it and do it while we can.
There you go.
But anyways, so taking a camera down and then carrying it over to the other side. And then the other thing I noticed is if I did a helmet camera where I mounted it on the helmet and you're looking around where I'm at, it makes for a very dizzying video because I'm constantly shifting and moving around and not always following the play. So a window camera behind's the best, but trying to get that off and moved in a minute and still take a drink, wipe my face down, change the sweatband in my mask, all that kind of stuff takes a little bit of time. So from what I understand, you don't have any models show just because you've been lazy.
Well, I've got my P5A, my Pennsylvania Railroad P5A, which I've been working on, and this is a model that I've sort of taken apart, reinstalled half a dozen times now because I was never quite happy with the installation. Mm-hmm. I did one, I was happy with it, and I put it together and I ran it for a while, and then one of the wires inside broke.
Oh, that's always a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and it was one of those really, really thin wires.
Of course it was.
So
then you have to take it apart, then reinstall it, and then try to figure out why the wire broke.
So that's what I'm doing now.
Got it. All right. Well, I guess we'll take the lazy moniker away from you then. Well, I guess with that, since we don't really have much to talk about here, we're going to go ahead and welcome in our special guest this time. Now, this is Jim Wiggin. He is the brand manager at Athearn Trains, and you guys may have seen him at shows. I know him and I get along really well. We have a odd relationship. It's kind of fun, and we just have a lot of fun together. So Jim, I wanted to bring you in, and thanks for coming on. Introduce yourself to the people who may not know you, and let's go ahead and have a little quick conversation.
Sure, thanks George, and how's it going, Norman? Good to see you guys again.
Yep.
And you mentioned, Athearn brand manager for a couple of years now, and model railroader for well over 35 years. Pretty much I see the marketing day to day on Athearn, and that pretty much means anything you see print material in a magazine, if you see me at a show, or even if you don't see me at a show, I usually have some kind of influence there. A little bit of everything, and promoting Athearn, both HO and N scale, and proud to have SoundTraxx as a partner. We couldn't be heard without you guys.
Yeah, I know. We've always been really excited about supplying product for you guys, and in my opinion, it's one of the greatest things because I've always been an Athearn train fan. So, because you mentioned you've been modeling for 35 years. I've been modeling since I was 14, and that's many years ago. And so for me, I've always been an Athearn modeler and an Athearn fan. And so what was interesting was the partnership started up literally the same time I was actually hired in here. Those are people that were agreed with that long before. As I was coming in, they told me that, oh, by the way, we just landed the Athearn account, so we'll be supplying them. I was like, well, good. That's one thing I was going to put on my agenda. And so we've been supplying you guys for over 15 years now, so that's a great partnership. And, one of the things I really love about our product is the fact that we build it here, and our technicians downstairs are actually able to hand test every one of our decoders before they leave, whether they're built for you as the user or in this case to Athearn. Every one of those decoders are hand tested. So what it does is it minimizes any problems that you're going to find out there in the field. And so it really does make it a whole lot easier. And it's also reliable for you guys because then you don't have to worry about a crapshoot on stuff that hasn't been tested, whether it's going to go through the channels. And then that puts into a huge tax on your service department to now have to go in and repair and fix them because we didn't do our job very well.
One of the things I enjoy about SoundTraxx and the quality of SoundTraxx is I can go out, I can pre-order a locomotive, and just because I work at Athearn doesn't mean I get to jump ahead of the line. I'm right there with the consumers. But I can pre-order a locomotive, I can look forward to it, and I can set it, the day comes, the magic dark blue box shows up, I open it up. Our guys have done their job as far as the detail and everything, but it's much more immersive when you put that locomotive on the tracks and you add power to it and you hear that prime mover, come to life. You hear the horn, you hear all of the other things that, you're so used to. And for me, it makes it just that much more immersive. I mean, I've done N scale for well over, I think probably about 30 of those 35 years, and then just recently got back into HO. And even the smallest little switchers that we have, our little SW1200s, man, they're showstoppers. I mean, they sound great. And we know that you guys actually record from the actual locomotive. So it's not some weird meta file that you guys made up or something. It's actually recorded from the actual locomotive.
Oh yeah. We try to strive for that, and that's why you don't see a lot of different variations, because we do give you audio tools to be able to do that. Because one of the things we could do as a company is we could go into our sound lab and take that same recording and manipulate it several different times and sell it to you as different sound files. But we don't actually do that. You get an authentic, and then you get some audio tools if you want to make them sound different. But one of the things I do want to point out is that the Athearn locomotives that you are getting are actually full Tsunami 2s. They come with all the features, pun intended, all the bells and whistles that you would get in your aftermarket decoder. Now the differences are that the Athearn folks in their design team have actually predetermined some specific settings to match the model that they're installing it into, whether that be different lighting, default horn settings, bell settings, things like that they're designed to match that model more closely, so that you don't have to do the work. But all the features are there. So things like the independent brake, automatic brake, functioning dynamic brake, all the audio tools that I mentioned, the equalizer, the pitch, prime mover pitch shift, all those tools are in the decoder. And then you also have all of the decoders, whether they're the models equipped with it or not, actually have 8 lighting outputs that we're putting in those Athearn models. And so you can actually take those models and add extra lights if you so choose. I know you guys are certainly taking advantage of that in a lot of the more recent models. But let's say, for argument's sake, if somebody wants to take an older Tsunami 2 Athearn and add things like maybe step lights or something like that, there's probably a function output there that's available for you to be able to do that. And the other thing is the Athearn boards are pre-regulated for LEDs, so you can attach your LEDs directly to the circuit board and wire them up, so you don't have to worry about adding resistors or anything like that. And that's one of the unique features for the Athearn decoders versus the aftermarket.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, behind me in this display case, we've got an Athearn Genesis Jeep 9. That's exactly how I remember it when I was a kid. So what's cool is out of the box, those memories come flooding back. I think for model railroaders, era is another part of the thing. I mean, we model what we model because we remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And so right away out of the box, that's ready to go. But like you're saying, if I want to fine tune, if I want to put more lighting on there, it comes with the Tsunami 2. It's real easy to add that lighting. And in fact, I was at a pretty good sized regional train show a couple of weeks ago, and a good friend of mine, he models in 2 rail O, but that's all he uses is SoundTraxx. And he showed me all of the lighting, and people were amazed. I was like, well, how did you do that? And he says, well, SoundTraxx Tsunami 2, I've got 8 lighting functions. All I need to do is install to my heart's content. And so, and now you're right. You're seeing the Genesis models now being delivered with extra lighting features that we didn't have in the past, you know, classification lights, number boards, ground lights, and the list goes on. So yeah, that's great. Out of the box, it's ready to go. But if you want to do more with it, you can. It's just the beginning when you open that box.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that, if you've ever read through our user's guide, everything in the user's guide still applies. It's just some of the default settings are different. And we actually publish a factory default sheet for every decoder. So if you want to look into those, like see what exactly those differences are, you can just go to the factory default sheet and it'll list everything right there.
Absolutely. And you know, for those that are still doing their programming the old-fashioned way, with, you know, maybe through the hammerhead or their handheld throttle, you know, like George says, you don't have to worry about it. If you do mess something up, what do you do, George? What's the 8/8 call on that?
Yeah, CV8 to 8, cycle the power to reset the decoder back to factory defaults the way it was when it left our factory. And so that'll take it back to the Athearn defaults.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to worry about messing something up because you can't. Everything can be fixed. That's the beauty of SoundTraxx. And, you know, the other thing, I mean, George, you know this, I recently got into the proto throttle.
Mm-hmm.
So the cool thing is I can take my brand new locomotive out, put it on my test track. First of all, I set it up to, you know, the sound volumes that I like. I've got a relatively small room. So I'm going to set up the sound volumes the way I like. I'm going to fine tune the sound. I'm going to fine tune the lighting. I'm going to fine tune that kind of stuff. And then I go into my proto throttle, and then we can actually mimic the physics of a full scale locomotive because of the way SoundTraxx is set up. I can set that all up, and my proto throttle now, talk about immersive into the hobby. Now I'm actually operating like a full scale locomotive, and that really, really is fun to do.
Oh yeah, I've got one of those proto throttles at home, but I don't use it as much as I probably should because, like you said, it is a lot of fun to use. But I tend to, right now I've converted everything on my home layout to Blue Nami, and so I tend to just use my phone and just start running trains because I can quickly add and consist and build and run trains, you know, within a matter of seconds. But getting back to the Athearn stuff, you mentioned a couple of things. When you talk about not being able to mess up the decoder, which you always got the reset, but I also want to point out there's also some safeguards built into the decoder. I actually had this conversation with one of our customers this week where, you know, there's other brands of decoders out there where, say, for example, if they had 16 air horns to choose from, but if you accidentally, you know, say, you know, type in the wrong button, like say, for example, you accidentally try to pick whistle 35 instead of whistle 15 or whatever the case is, that decoder could turn into a brick. And what I mean by that is where it starts looking for data because it's looking for the information for whistle number 35, but there's no data. So the decoder can't move on until it gets that data, but there's no data to get. So it ends up into this eternal loop looking for the data that's not there, and it turns it into a brick. And that's one of the advantages is our software actually has safeguards in there. So if you try to pick, I know, for example, we have 44 air horns in our diesel decoders. And so if you try to accidentally pick whistle 64 or air horn 64 or whatever the case is, the decoder's like, that's not a choice, and then defaults back to zero. And that takes extra level of software engineering rather than just saying, well, why would they do that? I don't need to write that extra code. Why would they pick whistle 46 or whatever it is? And so that's one of the safeguards. So the reason I point that out is because a lot of people tend to be apprehensive on trying out some of the features because they're afraid they're going to break the decoder if they type in the wrong value. And so with those safeguards built into the software that's inside the decoder, you can rest assured that your Athearn model is going to work even if you accidentally type in the wrong value. Now, you may get some undesired operation. So like, say, for example, if you set a braking rate that's higher than you want, it may take longer or stop more quickly. You can always go back and change it again. You can change CVs to your heart's content. And these are many of the reasons why Athearn has used us over the years. Like I said, I'm a very proud Athearn user. I'm very happy that we've got this great partnership. And like I said, Jim, you and I, we've got a great relationship. We've had some fun over the years going to the train shows, especially our trip to White Castle about a year ago.
I still haven't found my car.
I know. I don't know where your car went.
I don't know where it went. But that's all right. According to my wife, I've got too many anyways.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, of course. And what's funny is you and I were at one of the shows. I forget which one it was now, but you and I were both like going through the scale car section. Oh crap! Look at all these cool cars, and start buying a bunch of them.
Yeah.
My wife tells me the same thing.
Yeah. No, you can never have too many of those. I mean, if I had the room, I would honestly do, probably Flint, Michigan, so I could justify having all of those cars.
Yeah.
Because
you go.
That operation alone, with auto park box cars, all those little, but to do it, I'm assuming you'd probably need a warehouse to model that in HO.
Yeah, but you can start with your little. I hear you're building an 8-foot section of track that you're looking at doing a small little switching layout on. So there you go. That could be the loading dock or the unloading dock for the finished cars.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, definitely.
I like
But
it.
yeah, we've had some good fun. We've done a lot of shows together. We've done some lives out at Colorado at Rocky Mountain Train Supply. That was always good. And we're hoping to do more as we move on, because as the Genesis locomotives keep getting produced, people are going to start seeing more and more features added. And the nice thing is with SoundTraxx, like you were saying, when the researcher is working on, say, our SD50s, these are brand new.
Mm-hmm.
If it has a Leslie air horn, that's what the product developer is going to say in his write-up that goes to SoundTraxx. And so that way, when it comes from the factory, that's what it's going to have. And if you go in there, and we've all done it, if you're doing the programming through, like your throttle, you're going to dumb thumb something every now and then. Everybody does it. If you don't, you're lying. Okay, so you hit the wrong thing from Leslie to, I don't know, Nathan. It's like, oh, now it doesn't sound right. Well, worst case scenario, you can reset that to the factory settings. So it's the SD50 as the product developer had it engineered in the beginning. And that's what I love about SoundTraxx. I don't worry. It's a no worry system.
There you go. And it's realistic and fun to use.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I've actually done that myself, where I fat fingered a couple of things.
Yeah.
I had this was an Athearn Genesis Gevo that I was playing around with, and suddenly, and I don't know when it happened, but I would put it on the track and go to speed step 1, it'd take off down the track. I'm like, what the heck happened? And I finally realized somewhere in my CVs, I'm typing things away, I accidentally set CV2 to a high value, which is start. And so speed step 1 with that CV2 offset had it taking off at speed step 1. So it happens to the best of us. And that's, like you said, that's the safeguards that we have built into it.
And if you don't want to lose all your programming, the other thing is we actually have partial resets. So you can reset specific blocks of CVs, and that's covered in our user's guide.
Yeah, so like, say, for example, if you accidentally did some function mapping, or you decide you don't like it and you want to just reset it all, you can reset the CV1 dot whatever CVs just by setting CV8 to a value of 10, 11. Okay.
11 is for the 1 dot index.
Got it. There you go. I didn't remember that one off the top of my head. I know 13 is 3 dot because I use that also as a troubleshooting.
So value of 9 is CV's 1 to 128 reset. Value 10 is 129 to 256.
That's right.
And then 11 is the 1 dot, 12 is the 2 dot, 13 is the 3 dot.
Right. And the 3 dot I use as a when we reset the 3-dot CVs, there's only really 2 in most models that you're going to be accessing, and it has to do with the wheel click. It has to do with number of axles and the length of the locomotive. So I tell people to set CV8 to 13, and what it does is when you cycle the power and reapply power, it flashes the lights, and there's your visual indication to let you know the reset's taken place. Well, I'll use that as a troubleshooting to let people try out and make sure the decoder has control of the lights, because it flashes all of the lighting effects.
Yeah.
And so if they do CV8 to 13, they haven't changed any of their programming that is important other than those 2 CVs, but they probably haven't addressed those anyway. And
But it flashes all the lights.
but it does flash all the lights. So if the lights flash, that means the decoder has power
and it can control them.
and it can control those lights. And if it doesn't flash the lights, then the decoder isn't able to control it. And so now we have to look at physical issues, whether it's a burnout light bulb, broken wire, or whatever else. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing to point out, because that's something a lot of people don't necessarily realize.
Yeah.
So
You know, the one thing too, is we all know we've got friends in our clubs, we got friends in our modelers group. We've always got that one guy that gets the new Genesis locomotive, and it's still on address number 3 because they're so afraid that they're going to do something wrong. And what I tell people at shows, what I tell people when they come over to operate, it's like, go ahead, set some time aside, put the locomotive on your test track, and do yourself a favor, get your laptop out and go to SoundTraxx YouTube channel, because there are guides, there are step-by-step guides. I'm not ashamed to admit I've gone and watched you, George, because I'm thinking, hey, how can I do this? It's impossible to remember everything that these decoders can do. So you can just go to the channel, look it up, and it's step by step. And if you're like me, it's really a lot easier to see somebody actually doing it in real time and then seeing the outcome. And once you do that a few times, then it's second nature. It's no different than checking your email at that point.
yeah, and it takes a little bit of practice, but once you find your settings that you like, you can set those decoders, whether it's a decoder you've installed or whether it's a decoder that you're buying from our friends at Athearn Trains.
Yeah.
Any of those can be set up any way you like. So cool. With that, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up this particular section. Any last closing comments you want to add?
Boy, I'm really glad we get this partnership, because for one thing, I get to have the cool sounds and I get to play around with stuff. And the second thing is I get to join you guys at shows, and yeah, we've had a lot of fun. There's probably been shenanigans, maybe a little.
Oh, come on, we're innocent.
Yeah, we don't do too much.
So, well, that's awesome. Well, Jim, we appreciate the time coming in and joining us for our podcast. This has, been a lot of fun, and I know we'll see you out on the road again.
Yeah, we'll see you guys out on the road, and we'll get together and have fun, run trains, and probably some shenanigans as well.
Sounds good. We'll see you there.
All right, take it easy.
All right.
Well, guys, that was our interview with Jim Wiggin at Athearn Trains. Hopefully that was fun and entertaining for you. And if you're at any of our train shows, whether it be us or Athearn, always come by and let them know you heard them on our Train Talk podcast, so that way they know they're getting exposure and things like that. In finishing, I guess I just want to say, make sure that, remember, we don't stop liking model trains, whether it's a summer, winter, whatever the case is.
Yep.
Just, continue doing it. And if you do travel a lot, make sure you visit your hobby shops around the area of the country where you are visiting, or even abroad. If you go to other hobby shops, it's kind of cool to see what kind of stuff's available across the pond.
I mean, if you're going to any like the heritage railroads, most of them have a little train shop built into them.
Yeah. So always check it out, and you never know what you're going to find. In worst case, you've always got your go-to back home.
Yep.
So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and close it out. We appreciate you watching and or listening wherever you are in the world today. So we'll look forward to seeing you in episode 4. So thanks a lot. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.